Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get started on our garden rose. And you'll see as we're working that a lot of the structure is going to be similar to our ranunculus, but there's a little bit of differences. We are going to cut our petals a little bit to give them a little bit of ruffle and shape. And as well as the way we're going to cup our petals is going to be a little bit different. So you'll see towards the center, they're going to really be going in and grabbing kind of that center styrofoam. And then as we get out here, we're going to start pulling them back. So it just gives us a little bit of more open flower. So to get started with our petals, we are going to use the same method of our craft punches. And this time I'm using 3 different sizes. We have the 1.5 2 inch and a 2.5 inch. And we're going to use 13 of our 1.5 inch, 11 of our 2 inch, and then 9 of our 2.5 inch. Okay, so you know the process of how to punch those out. And again, you can use the color paper of your choice. And once we have our sizes out, we're going to make sure that we get a slit again in all of our petals. And the same thing, just almost halfway up. And do that in all of our petals on each size. And now the difference is we do want to go in and put some shape in the petals. So to do that, you can stack a few of them at a time. I would not do all of them at a time for a couple of different reasons. One, when you get too big of a stack, they get a really jagged edge and they don't cut very cleanly. And 2, we do want each petal to kind of be a little bit unique and have a little bit of difference to them. So I would say 2 or 3 at a time would work great. And to do this, I'm just going to go in with my scissor and holding my scissor hand taut and just moving the paper with my free hand. I'm just giving it a little bit of shape and ruffle. And I like it really tight and small, not too wavy and bumpy. So we'll do that in all the sizes. And I even kind of go in, you'll see sometimes in roses, they'll even have a little split in the petal. So sometimes I like to go in and just do that. It's completely up to you to use your artistic thoughts on that and come up with a great shape for your petal. Okay, so once you're finished cutting all of your petals, you'll want to go ahead and vein them the same way as we did with our previous flowers. These ones are very similar to the ranunculus where they do have a lot of veining to them, so you want to make a couple of passes. Okay, and once you have all of your petals veined, we'll go to the cupping process, and I'm going to show you on each size it's a little bit different. So we will use our piping gel again, and on our small petals, we're going to set aside 6 of them and just leave them flat like we did with our ranunculus, and I'll show you how we're going to attach those to the styrofoam ball. But for the remaining petals on the smaller size, we're going to add our piping gel to the back side. And all of these petals will be cupped with the color on the outside and the piping gel on the inside. So we're going to cup them like that and making sure that our color is on the back side here. And then we're also going to give the tips of them just a little bit of a curl inward. So it's going to give us a nice pretty center on our flower. Okay, so you'll do that on all of your small sizes, excluding the 6 that we'll leave flat. Now on our medium size, it's the same thing with the piping gel on the back. On these ones, we are going to cup them with the color inside. So you want to make sure the color is facing you and right over left with your tabs. We also want to give a little bit of movement to our petals on this size as well. So on these, each one's going to be curled a little bit different. So you can do some of them back and a little bit forward. Because these are the kind of the just on the outside right before we're getting to those big petals that are going to be open. And on each petal, you will want to do something a little bit different. Okay, and we'll set those aside to dry. Now on our large one, we're going to go again to the back side with the piping gel. And these are going to be our outside petals, and our flower wants to be nice and open. So we're going to cup these. Actually, on these ones I will say, before we cup them, it's a lot easier to actually curl the petals. So we're going to curl all of these petals with the color facing you and curl backwards. So it's going to give us a nice open petal. And then once you get that done, and then you can go ahead and cup your petal. And we'll set all of those aside to dry for just a little bit. And I do have my petals ready. Okay, so all of these that I have already cupped and veined and set aside to dry for just a bit. And these are the ones we'll be working with to add to our styrofoam center. Again, if you get sticky, that towel is handy. So we will be working again with a 1-inch styrofoam ball attached to a 22 gauged wire. And to start with our center, we'll use those 6 petals that we left flat. And we will apply a little bit of piping gel to them. And you can do all 6 at once with the piping gel, so they're all ready to go. Oops, and that's okay. If that tears like that, I could show you how we're going to attach it. It won't even be able to be seen, so it'll be okay. Okay, and also our water. Okay, so actually I'll start with this one that ripped since we're really going to be molding it around our ball here. Again, we're just going to tack it down, and this time we want to make sure that the top of our petal is right close to the center of the top of our styrofoam ball. So we do want to cover the ball completely. So I'm going to hold it down with my finger and use the water to really shape the paper around the ball. And you can see actually where that tear is going to help us be able to mold this around. And using a larger sized brush for this is pretty helpful too, because we're going to be covering a lot of surface area. Okay. And you can also see that the paper is going to discolor when you add the moisture to it, and that's okay, because a lot of that's going to be covered up with all of our petals. So our next one, we are going to add slightly overlapped, and again trying to meet at the top. Tacking it down and using the water again to mold the paper around the ball. Okay. And our third one's going to fill in this last final gap. And since we have tacked it down with so much water, we're not going to be able to get under that first petal, which is okay. So we're just going to overlap both of the petals you already have down. Okay, so now we have our center, and you can see our styrofoam's all covered up at the top, which is what we want. So with the next 3 petals, we're going to overlap the seams here, and I do like to curl it just a little bit at the top to give us a little bit of movement, but they will be applied the same way. So we're going to cover up that seam, and we are looking for a flat top, so you want to align this petal evenly with the height of your first petals that you put down. So holding it down and using the water, again, just to mold around the ball. You can also use your fingers. Sometimes it gets a little bit easier. Okay. Moving on to our next one, again, overlapping. Tacking down. Okay. And our last one here. And I'm going to curl this one a little bit. You can see with the last one I didn't curl it. That's a design choice too. You can decide how tight you want that center to be. If you want it really nice and tight, then I would curl all of them in. But I like how some of them are standing up and the different movement that it gives. Okay, now that all of those are down, we can continue on with the same size petals on the ones that are already cupped and attach those the same as we did with the ranunculus. So we're just going to find the seam there where the other 2 petals overlapped and cover that up with our already cupped petal, and it should sit nicely in there, and tack it down with just a little bit of water at the base. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep attaching these petals, and just like the ranunculus, we went in threes when we got to those larger petals. I'm gonna do the same with this flower. Again, that's just a design decision on my part. I like that it gives it a little bit of unevenness and it's not a complete perfect spiral. I like that organic look to it. And be sure when you're placing your petals to make sure they're right up against your wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish these up. Okay, and our flower is complete. And you can see it's a nice big sized open rose, and these are quite versatile because you could change the sizes easily by using different sized punches. They fill out great arrangements and you can use them in a lot of different designs.